Hi, I'm Rina, and welcome to the Lessons from Post-Exit Entrepreneurs. After selling my brand communications agency, I started getting questions from people about the process of selling the company. Fellow entrepreneurs who exited their businesses also shared about their post-exit experiences. I thought about how great it would be if these conversations with such valuable insights could be shared with others too. Therefore, I launched this podcast where you will get the lowdown from entrepreneurs' collective insights in exiting their businesses, learn from their post-exit challenges, be inspired by their journeys, and their rediscovery in the pursuit of a purposeful life. Hi guys! Today our guest is Rahul. Rahul Sahgal is a data scientist and entrepreneur who set up the firm Annik Technology Services from just 2 people to over 1,100 people in 16 years. He sold the business to US-based customer engagement company LiquidHub, which was later acquired by the French IT services giant CapGemini for US 500 million. Thank you so much for making time today, Rahul.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's so much of my pleasure. Okay, so could we start off with you sharing with us how your entrepreneurship journey started?
Sure. As I have heard a lot of people talk about how they were accidental entrepreneurs, so mine is the same. I was working for a company that posted me back to India, and working for a US company. And then while in India, I had the opportunity to start something new for somebody that I'd known for a while in the industry. I took that jump and started with just 2 people, not in a garage, but on top of a garage. So that was the opportunity that lent itself.
All right. And you grew the company from 2-3 people all the way to 1,100 people, and that's a lot.
Yes.
And of course, with any business journey, you start from $1 or $0 to the first 100,000, and then to the first million, then the next 10 million, and so forth. At every stage of growth, the things that you have to do to scale the company will be very different.
Yes.
Could you share with us, I'm sure there are many things, but maybe some of the key things that you could share on what you did?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So at every stage of a company's growth, there are different things you need to do. For example, as you are going from 0 to the, say, first million, that's known as the first trough. Then 5 million is another trough where you can actually have a difficulty in getting through to the next stage. There are some studies that have been done to show that a lot of companies actually die at these different troughs. So getting through each trough is, I think they're known as the valleys of death.
Exactly.
What gets you to one level is very different to get you to another level.
Yeah.
And especially for services companies. My first company was a services company where you're dealing with just a lot of people, as you mentioned, 1,100 when we sold. So it's the kind of people, management, processes that you need at different levels is also different.
So how many countries were Annik present in by the time you sold? And, as you expanded the company into new territories, what are some of the challenges and issues you faced?
Sure. So for a company our size, so we were about 35 million revenue when we sold. We actually had a pretty wide footprint. We were present in India, of course, also in the US, which was our target market. And then we were also in Dalian, China. We were in Warsaw, Poland, in Singapore as well. And we had a lot of opportunity to be in these different locations. And when we were able to get to these different locations, we made it very cookie cutter. After the first 2, we kind of knew that to set up a new location, what kind of permissions and what kind of access you need, what kind of roles you need. You need a local accounting firm. You need like somebody to help you to get through all the rules and regulations, and then the hiring and so on and so forth. We always made sure that we kept a local manager wherever we were, and not try to send somebody from outside to run that. Although we always sent somebody for like a 3 to 6 month transition period but we wanted to have each location be local run because we felt that was the best way to determine stability and growth in that location.
Got it. So now you were the founder of the company all the way from the start till the end when you sold the company.
Yeah.
So, for a company of your size, I'm sure many founders would actually have hired a CEO along the way. What were the considerations? Why didn't you hire a CEO?
So I focused on building a strong second line. And I believe by the time we got mature enough, we had a very strong COO. We had a very strong CFO, HR, and then the operations team was quite strong. So I think a lot of people will hire a CEO if they want to do something else, if they are willing to take like a little more backseat and not be too involved. But a true CEO, in my mind, in my definition, does not get involved in day-to-day. So if you have a strong team that's doing all the operations, the sales, the management, then you can actually focus on more strategic things, which is what a chairman or somebody would do anyway. So for me, especially in a services business, I think different types of businesses are different. But in a services business, it's important to have a good second line so that the CEO can focus on strategic things, which is what I had done, I believe.
Okay. So it's an intentional choice, not
Yes.
to. All right. And how did you get to know LiquidHub? And were you intending to sell at the time?
So we were always looking out. I'll be very honest. In services business, in IT, you need to keep growing. If you want to create value, if you want to grow your valuation. And there are a few paths to really monetizing that value. One is to go IPO, to become big enough to go IPO. And the other is a strategic sale. Now, to get to an IPO level, you need to have continuous growth, you need to show a strong track record, and you need to get to a size that is able to be sizable for IPO to begin with. Now, I think our size, we were kind of just at the entry level for IPO, but in the IT space, there's a lot of giants, and as we were growing, we started competing with some of these giants, like the Accentures and the Infosys and the Genpact. I believe that ultimately we took the right path of exiting at that time and not trying to keep growing because it gets more difficult the bigger you are to keep growing, at least inorganically. And I didn't really want to get into the hassle of buying other companies and merging companies or doing some kind of a private equity funded accumulation of assets and other companies. I wanted to kind of be my own boss for as long as I could. And when I realized that I couldn't continue to be in that way, then I decided to exit.
And did LiquidHub come to you? Or, did you find them? I mean, how did you guys get acquainted?
Sure. So in my journey, I never had a private equity investment in that company. But I did have people from the industry who had invested in their personal name. And so it was through one of the connects of somebody who had invested and who knew of LiquidHub and what they were planning and saw that we were a good fit in that. And essentially what it was a PE roll-up. What that means is there's one company which is the roll-up CEO and the roll-up company, and all of the other companies kind of get put under that. And then the entire merged group is then sold to a much larger entity, which is exactly what happened.
All right. And they already told you that's their plan from the beginning when they got acquainted with you guys?
Yes. They did mention that this was a plan to do kind of to build a customer engagement platform and company for future exit. But it happened much faster than even they expected, I think. So between the time when LiquidHub acquired us and then CapGemini was, I think, just about a year. So that's pretty fast.
That's really fast.
It's very fast. So just as we were settling into LiquidHub, then we had to do another settling into CapGemini. So the real integration in my mind really happened at the CapGemini level.
Right.
Because there I served a 2.5-year earnout to make sure that all the integration was done effectively.
Right. What was LiquidHub's original plan? How long did they think it was going to take? I mean, it ended up
It was
only
about
being a
two-
year.
Yeah, about two,
Yeah.
2.5 years.
Which is still pretty fast.
It is still pretty fast.
Yeah,
Yes.
wow. So at the time when LiquidHub got to know you guys and you were discussing, did you guys know that the potential, buyer
No.
next is going to be CapGemini?
No, we didn't.
Right.
And at that time, when you're in that mode, there's a lot of rumors that fly around. You have people visiting you, and people really, oh, this is the company that's going to acquire. Oh, this is the company. So it's very important to kind of keep that a distance away from the day-to-day operations. You asked about whether we seeked it out or whether they contacted us. Yeah, we were definitely open, as I mentioned, and we had tried to go to the market once before, but that didn't actually work out very well. And at the last stage, it didn't go forward. And that's one thing I have to say, like exiting your company is not easy. If you can get a successful exit, it's like, almost like winning the lottery in many ways.
Yeah.
So the first time was an experience where it didn't really work out. And at that time, because everybody was focused on that, we kind of took our eye off the ball, and revenue suffered, our employee engagement suffered. So the second time with CapGemini, I took a lot of personal ownership to make sure that it doesn't interfere with the day-to-day operations. So I kept it as much at arm's length as possible. And I personally got involved with all the due diligence and the legal, which for me was actually quite a lot of fun.
Okay, I'm sure a lot of people will not agree with you. But how do you then make sure this time round that when you are going through the due diligence process, which is really painful, as you have said, that the eyes are still kept on the business? It's hard to juggle both at the same time.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that came with, the second time we tried, the company was more mature. I was actually playing more of the CEO role. Which is more strategic. So I was able to focus a lot more time on that and keep the operations team kind of away from everything, so that it wouldn't have an impact on the company. I think get people involved when they need to, and not have them involved at every stage. So I kind of managed that process in a way that kind of just disengaged with the day-to-day running. Which is why I was able to actually spend a lot of time with all the different, you had the PwCs, you had E&Y, you had all the law firms all together many times in one room. But for me, that was fun. It was challenging, but fun.
Yeah. Now that you mentioned the lawyers, so the question about, you engaged an investment banker and a lawyer, right?
Yeah.
So for some people, they talk about, you just need an investment banker or even just an M&A broker. And for some, they say that, you will need a lawyer, but you hired both. So
Yes.
I think they probably bring different advice
Yes.
on the table. So could you describe, a little bit for the audience, what were the benefits of having two different types of experts,
Sure.
and what kind of different types of advice that they gave? Yeah.
So the number one thing that I would tell your audience is never scrimp on the lawyer fees. Make sure you get the best possible lawyer you can, because I think that is absolutely critical for the success of an exit on terms that you want. Of course, a broker or investment banker is important. They help to take some of the heavy lifting off you. They'll do a lot of the regular preparation and stuff. But you also have to remember that either it's an investment broker or an investment banker, you're aligned in some ways, but you're not aligned in all ways. And the ways you're not aligned is, in many cases, at least what I've seen, the fees that an investment banker makes is success-based.
Yeah.
So if they are able to get the successful exit, then they get a fee. If not, either they get nothing or they get a very small retainer. Now, because they are being paid in that way, for them, getting a deal done at all costs is the primary motivating factor. Whereas for you, it may not be that you just have to get a deal done at all costs unless you're desperate. And if you're desperate, I don't recommend trying to go for an exit when you're desperate. People smell that and you'll be knocked down pretty badly. So that's why you have to be just a little aware of the role that an investment banker plays, the role that a lawyer plays. I also recommend, looking at all the clauses yourself. Don't just completely rely on the lawyer, because ultimately it's you who have to live with the next stage. You have to live with whatever outcome happens, whatever clauses you have agreed on, and so on and so forth. So it's really, really important that you read everything, understand everything, negotiate yourself on key points that are important to you. Those are very important, but they're two different roles, very different roles.
So the lawyer is not incentivized by whether you sell or not.
Not usually. Lawyers will never do that.
Yeah,
Lawyers just want their fees.
And by per hour, right?
Yes,
or even by per minute.
But still, it's the best money you can spend. I know it sounds expensive. You kind of have to look at, get some kind of a quotation that puts a cap. So say, here's the deal that I'm trying to do. If you've got X number of, here's the different stages, here's the parties involved, this is the kind of work. They'll do a kind of a quotation, and then try to get a cap on that. I think that's the best you can do. Beyond that, they'll never do success-based. Lawyers are the ones who make money no matter what.
Yeah. Whether you sell or not, they will
Correct.
still make their money. That's why they are lawyers.
Yes.
So, and you were talking about how you kept your team away from the due diligence process so they could focus on their work. So I imagine it would just be a selective group of people in your team, not the entire company, right? Would it just be the key management team?
Yes. Yeah, we had exactly that. We had a key management team. We call that the senior leadership team. And
just the C-suite.
Just the C-suite, and one or two below in some cases for certain important accounts. So I think the total we had is about 6-7 people in that team, and that's the team that I would get together for either the road shows or for when we had to have interactions with either the acquiring company or the due diligence of the acquiring company. They would want to talk to some of these people, so it was important to have them there.
Right. When you actually only involve this key management team, would you also have to manage their emotions a little bit, because they know that you are speaking to a potential company, even though they are shielded from the due diligence, and they are focusing on the business. So did you have to manage, just in case the sale doesn't go through?
Right.
Yeah.
You always have to. I think what really aligns a management team is that everybody gets a share of whatever we exit for. So one of the things that I focus a lot on is how I would divide up the proceeds from the sale. Now, we had a very strong stock option program. Of course, the management team had very good stock options, but the stock option program started very early in our journey as a company. So even very junior people had stock options. I think out of the 1,200, about 200 people had stock options. So whether it was a small amount or whether it was a decent amount, but there was a lot of people who had stock options. And that was the primary alignment and motivating factor. Of course, getting them involved and keeping them motivated, the stock options are a big way. So they know that if there's an exit, they will get X. They know exactly how much they'll get, and then what the earnouts, etc., will be, what share will be of theirs from there as well. So that's the number one alignment. And then they also know that if it doesn't happen, it's up to all of us as the team. You have to hit certain revenue numbers, you have to hit certain margin numbers, and only then can you have a successful exit. So that really made sure that everybody's on the same page. And when we finally sold, that was the best margin that we ever had. So everybody was really gung-ho, shooting for increased sales, reducing costs so that we would have a good margin, because a lot of the evaluations are EBITDA based. So EBITDA was the driving factor, which means you have to manage your top line and your bottom line. And I think that really helped to just keep the team not just together, but motivated and to kind of move forward. Of course, everybody knows that deals can fall apart, even at the last minute. So I made sure that people understood that, if not this, we can try something else, or we can just grow. It was never considered a done deal until it was a done deal. So I think it's really important to set expectations that while we're all trying, even getting from the last stage to getting it completed, as I'm sure you know, is probably the biggest leap. So you could have done all your homework, everything is done, everything is signed, and then just one more step is left. that last step. Also, I've seen many cases where things fail even at that last step.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So actually really having them have the skin in the game to also actually assist you, to provide you the information that you need for the due diligence process is very important.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And now you're the founder of QoreNext. And the technology for QoreNext was born out of Annik.
Correct.
And I'm really curious to find out, when you were selling to LiquidHub and later on to CapGemini, how do you protect this IP? I mean, it's still kind of in the same space, although it's slightly different. One, it's more AI, I suppose, and one is more people-based. Yeah, so how do you make sure that this IP still belongs to you and that you could run this company with no, non-compete clause, issues?
That's a good question, and it's a very interesting story. So this idea for this product, so you're right, it's not a people-based solution, it's a product platform. So while we're solving the same and similar kinds of business problems, which is basically taking external data and incorporating into large enterprises, the approach is very different. So a platform that is AI driven, that allows for enterprises to effectively and with high quality ingest that data, was an idea that we had even while at Annik. So my current co-founder and I came up with this idea, and we even tried to take it to market a little bit. When we were doing the negotiations with LiquidHub and then CapGemini, we couldn't agree on a valuation. Of course, the idea we thought was game-changing, industry-changing. I still do. That's why I basically did another startup. A lot of people ask me, why do you want to do another startup? But I want to see where this goes. So it's a very interesting IP. There was interesting, alignment of situations that allowed me to carve out. Initially, it was 75% of the IP, but then over time, I was able to get 100% of the IP out.
Wow.
Again, having good lawyers, very, very important. I would really give that to good negotiation with good lawyers, again, using different situations to your advantage. But yeah, we were very glad that we could get 100% of the IP out with all full documentation, full legal agreement that would stand to any scrutiny, so that we were able to, free of any encumbrances, basically invest and start in this new business.
Yeah, that's absolutely fantastic, and it's so crucial.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to do this now.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
And so, was QoreNext, the idea for QoreNext, already existent even while you were talking to LiquidHub?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
okay.
In fact, we had presented to them, I guess it took off a little more by the time we were talking with CapGemini. So you can imagine we went through two due diligences, two integrations.
So painful.
Yeah.
I can only imagine.
Right, back to back. But the idea was already there. It was maybe in its infancy. We did a couple of beta tests and things, but the concept of solving data problems without being dependent on people or hiring armies of people was something that was already there. We were able to take it to market, after that because of the carve out.
Right. And so when you sold to LiquidHub first, was it 100% sale or it wasn't?
So it's always 100% sale, but you only transfer shares as your tranches of payments come in. So in fact, the tranches had not even, moved to the next step when the CapGemini sale happened. So if in one way it accelerated the tranches, but you're always delivering shares when you get paid for those shares. Again, good lawyers. If somebody says, no, give me all the shares, I'll pay you in 3 years, and that typically does not work, because once they have the shares, they have all full control. They can do anything they want. Yeah.
So they could just kick you out.
Exactly.
And it has happened
of course,
for people.
You hear horror stories, right?
Yeah.
So it's very important to make sure you negotiate all of that, that the terms of the acquisition, integration. So one thing that we had was that after the sale, that I would have control over the roles that my team would play. so that they couldn't just assign people doing whatever they wanted, that I would have the ability to influence that. And that really, really came in handy. And I'm very proud and happy to say that a lot of, I would say almost all my, especially my key management team, but even all the way up and down the ranks, did very well at CapGemini. And today they hold very senior positions at CapGemini that makes me feel very proud. Interestingly also, in the history of the company, there was a lot of entrepreneurs that got born out of it, so which is a whole different story. But it's been it was a great incubator for entrepreneurs in related businesses as well.
And that's like the best thing that any founder could ask for, right? When you sold the company, you could see that the growth of the company is to the right trajectory, and there is still, certain growth for your people who have stayed with you for a very long time.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And I really like your perspectives as well when you talk about how you have some staff that actually left and move on to start their own businesses, and you are so happy for them, because there are some founders who are afraid of that. You work with me for a while, and you go out and you start your own and maybe compete with me, right?
Yeah, I think for one, if you're in a space that's big enough, I use this as my own guiding light, but I'm not afraid of competition. I feel that if anything, competition validates what you're doing. So if you're afraid of competition, you shouldn't start a business to begin with, because it's always going to be competitive. Now, when it comes to people who work with you and leave, I don't think maybe one or two started a directly competing business, but by that time we were already getting out of that sector. But I find that if somebody wants to leave and do something else, you can try to offer them, something that is as good or better than what their other opportunity is. And if not, then you wish them well. And many cases where people left to join other companies, they actually came back. So there was I remember when we were about 600-700 people, we had a management offsite, and I saw a few faces that looked familiar, and I was like, hey, how many of you have left the company and joined back? And about a third of the room raised their hands.
That's actually a lot.
So it was interesting. It's okay for people to go. It's okay for people to come. If they decide they want to start their own business, that's fine too. You cannot stop any individual from reaching their potential. I think that's what life is about for all of us. So who am I to stand in the way of someone who wants to do something that can help them reach their potential? And I think that builds good corporate karma.
Yeah, I like the way you put it.
Yeah.
And also just feeling that you have actually given them this foundation, this confidence that they could go out there and do it for themselves. That's amazing, right? Yeah, and that's something that I think every founder would feel quite heartened, as long as you feel that, look, the pie is really big,
right?
Or your competition, your target audience and mine's quite different, so it's fine for you to go out there and start something yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the services business, it's easier because there's less direct IP involved. Of course, if somebody does that and takes IP, it would be a whole different story.
Yeah, of course.
So services, it's very different in that area. Because a lot of either the software you're working on or the domains you're working on, a lot of people are working on them. Like I mentioned, a few of the large guys, they're also doing the same things as we were.
And let's talk a little bit about that change management process. So when you sold to LiquidHub, there were 1,100,000 staff. And 1,100 staff, and yourself as well, and your key management team. What was that change management process like, with LiquidHub and later on with CapGemini? Yeah.
So that stage, it was more about integration. And like I said, I wanted to make sure that my people got a good role, a challenging role, some opportunity for growth. I think in this kind of a merger, you have 3 or 4 different companies, and the acquiring company, you may not have 3 or 4 different roles for the same type of role. So making sure that the performance speaks for itself, the domain speaks for itself. Luckily, we were in the analytics and machine learning space. So for us, the skill sets that we had were slightly different from some of the other companies that were part of this roll-up. So we did have that kind of an advantage, because it's always been in demand for people who have that kind of experience, either whether even if it's client facing or operations facing or development facing. Analytics and related things have always been important. In fact, if we look at where we are today, AI, the way people think about it today is an evolution from analytics, then moving to machine learning, and then moving to AI. So it's a lot of the same skill sets, the same people who make the transition from one to the other. Of course, now it's getting to a whole other level when we're slap in the middle of building the data infrastructure for that space. So it's very, very exciting for us.
Right. All the best for this second new journey.
Thank
right.
you.
And okay, so we're going to end off with some quick fire round questions.
Okay.
And you could just answer with one or two words or even just like one or two sentences.
Okay.
Right. So number one, best advice you have been given about running a business.
Best advice about running a business that I would give or that I've been given?
That you have been given.
Okay. Yeah, I guess the best advice is that any corporation runs on three legs. First is revenue, profit, and cash flow. A lot of people don't look at cash flow, but it's probably as critical as any of the other two. And I was told that early on, and I think that really helped me.
Yeah, I totally second that. Your company could be having very, very high revenue, but you're not watching whether you have cash flow or not. The company could still totally go down.
Correct.
Yeah. All right. The next thing is, what was the one thing your business had that contributed to the sale?
Our culture, our business culture, hands down. I think we had one of the best business cultures in the industry.
Yeah, with 1/3 of people, leaving and coming back, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And what's one top thing to consider when selling a company?
Lawyer. Getting a good lawyer. I'll repeat that until I'm blue in the face, but getting a good lawyer is probably the best thing.
Okay. Biggest myth about selling a company?
That if you have enough revenue, that you can do it. Revenue is only the one of maybe 10 things that you need to have to be able to actually get a sale completed.
Yep. And what was the one thing that surprised you about selling a business?
I guess just getting it done. I was just surprised, hey, it's actually done. And then trying to figure out good problems to have, which is integration and things like that.
All right, fantastic. It was great speaking with you, Rahul.
Likewise. Thank you for all the very smart and interesting questions.
Thank you so much for your time. Thank you. All right. See you.
Bye.
Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you have enjoyed the episode. If you have, please consider hitting subscribe, like and comment on whichever platform you are listening from. Do also share with anyone whom you think will find this useful. I would also love to hear from you. Do let me know what are some of your key takeaways from this episode and any feedback or suggestions you may have. Do follow us on Instagram at Post-Exit Entrepreneurs for latest updates. I look forward to learning and growing with you through this podcast. I'll see you on the next episode. Bye!